Danny Cole had lived alone for 6 years. His small farm sat 20 miles outside of Barstow, California, surrounded by nothing but rocks, sand, and silence. He liked the quiet. After everything he had been through, the quiet felt like medicine. He had served in the army for 12 years. He had seen things that still woke him up at night. When he came home, his wife Linda was waiting for him with open arms and a warm smile. They had 10 good years together before the cancer took her. After the funeral, Danny sold their house in the city and moved to the desert. He wanted to be somewhere empty, somewhere that matched how he felt inside. Most nights, he sat on his porch and watched the stars. The sky out here was different from anywhere else. No city lights to drown out the view. Just millions of tiny points of light stretching from one horizon to the other. Sometimes he wondered if anyone was out there, looking back at him. On this particular night, the answer came walking across his property. Danny first noticed the movement around 9 o'clock. A shape was stumbling through the darkness about 100 yards from his house. He squinted, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. The figure moved strangely, like its legs did not work quite right. It fell, got back up, took a few more steps, and fell again. His first thought was that someone had gotten lost. Hikers sometimes wandered off the trails and ended up in trouble. The desert could kill you fast if you did not know what you were doing. Danny grabbed his flashlight from beside the door and walked out to help. He called out as he approached. The figure did not answer. It just kept crawling forward, pulling itself through the dirt with desperate determination. Danny started to run. When he reached the fallen form, he aimed his flashlight down and felt his whole body go cold. It was not human. The being had 2 arms and 2 legs, like a person. It had a head and a face with features that were almost familiar. But everything was wrong. The skin was pale blue, like the color of a winter sky just before sunset. The limbs were too long and too thin. The fingers had an extra joint. And the eyes, when they opened and looked up at him, reflected his flashlight beam like mirrors. Danny took a step backward. His heart was pounding so hard, he could feel it in his throat. Every instinct told him to run, to get back to the house, to pretend he had never seen this thing. But then, the creature spoke. "Please," it said. The voice was dry and cracked, barely a whisper. "Water, please, water." Danny stood frozen. The word was English. Clear, unmistakable English. This thing from somewhere else, this being that should not exist, was asking him for help in his own language. He looked at its face. Past the strange features and the alien eyes, he saw something he recognized. He saw suffering. He saw fear. He saw someone who was dying and knew it. Danny had seen that look before. He had seen it in the faces of wounded soldiers. He had seen it in his wife's eyes during her final days. It was a look that crossed all boundaries, all differences. It was the universal language of someone who needed help. He made his choice. "Wait here," he said. "I will be right back." He ran to the house. His hands were shaking as he filled a cup from the kitchen sink. Plain tap water, nothing special. He grabbed a bottle too, just in case. Then he ran back outside. The alien had not moved. It lay in the dirt, breathing in short, painful gasps. Danny knelt beside it and held the cup to its lips. "Drink slow," he said. "Small sips." The creature drank. It took every drop from the cup, then looked at him with an expression Danny could not read. He opened the bottle and held that out too. The alien drank half of it before stopping. "Thank you," it said. Its voice was stronger now, though still weak. "You have saved my life." Danny sat back on his heels. 1,000 questions filled his mind, but he pushed them aside. Questions could wait. Right now, he needed to get this being somewhere safe. "Can you stand?" he asked. My house is right there. We can get you inside, get you more water, figure out what to do next." The alien tried to rise and failed. Danny put one arm under its shoulders and helped it up. The creature was lighter than he expected, almost fragile. Together, they made their way slowly toward the farmhouse. Inside, Danny laid the alien on his couch. He brought more water, along with a wet cloth to wipe the dust from its face. The creature watched him the whole time with those strange reflective eyes. There was something in its gaze that Danny did not understand. Something like confusion mixed with wonder. "Why do you help me?" the alien asked. "You do not know what I am. You do not know where I come from. I could be dangerous. I could be your enemy. Why do you help me?" Danny shrugged. "You were dying. Helping seemed like the right thing to do. But you gain nothing from this. I gained the knowledge that I did not let someone die when I could have helped. That is enough for me." The alien was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke again, and its voice carried a weight that made Danny pay close attention. "My name is Veth. I am not from your world. I come from a planet very far away, part of an empire that spans many star systems. I was on a survey mission when my ship was damaged in a storm. I crashed in your desert 3 days ago. My water supply was contaminated. I was dying of thirst when you found me." Danny nodded slowly. "Okay, that is a lot to take in. But right now, the only thing that matters is getting you healthy again. We can talk about empires and star systems later." Veth stared at him. "You truly do not care about what I can offer you? About the knowledge I possess? The technology? Right now, I care about making sure you do not die on my couch. Everything else can wait." Something changed in Veth's expression. The confusion faded, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. "Your people," Veth said quietly. "They are not what we expected." Before Danny could ask what that meant, Veth reached up and pressed something behind its ear. A small device that Danny had not noticed before began to blink with a soft blue light. "What did you just do?" Danny asked. Veth looked at him with an expression that sent a chill down his spine. "I have called my people," Veth said. "They will come now. They will come for you. And when they learn what you have done, everything will change." Danny looked out the window at the dark desert sky. Somewhere up there, among all those distant stars, something was coming. He did not know what it was. He did not know what it would mean. But he knew, deep in his bones, that his quiet life was over. Danny did not sleep that night. He sat in his old armchair across from the couch where Veth rested, watching the alien breathe and trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Every few minutes, he glanced out the window at the sky, waiting for something he could not imagine. Veth drifted in and out of consciousness. During the moments when the alien was awake, Danny asked questions and tried to learn what he could. The answers only made him more confused. Veth explained that its people, the Volanti, had been watching Earth for a long time. They knew about humans. They had studied human history, human wars, human technology. They considered Earth a primitive world, interesting but not important. The survey mission that brought Veth here was supposed to be routine. A quick scan of the planet, some updated data, and then back to the Empire. But something went wrong, Veth said. A storm in your upper atmosphere damaged my ship. I lost control and crashed in this desert. My supplies were destroyed. I walked for 3 days, searching for water, for help, for anything. I found nothing but sand and heat. I thought I was going to die. And then you found my farm, Danny said. And then you found me, Veth corrected. And you gave me water. You saved my life. Among my people, that is not a small thing. Danny shrugged. It was just water. I have plenty of it. Veth looked at him with those strange eyes. You do not understand. In our culture, resources are everything. Water, food, energy, they are never shared freely. Everything has a price. Everything requires payment. The idea of giving something to a stranger, expecting nothing in return, it does not exist among us. That sounds like a hard way to live. It is the only way we know. Danny thought about that. He thought about all the times in his life when strangers had helped him. The neighbor who gave him rides to school when his parents could not afford a car. The sergeant who carried him 2 miles through enemy territory after he got shot in the leg. The nurses who took care of Linda in her final days, holding her hand when Danny could not be there. Kindness had saved him more times than he could count. Maybe it is time you learned a new way, he said. Before Veth could respond, the house began to shake. Danny jumped to his feet. The windows rattled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Outside, the darkness was suddenly filled with light, bright and blue, and coming from everywhere at once. He ran to the door and threw it open. The sky was falling. Dozens of ships descended from the clouds, each one larger than his farmhouse, each one glowing with that same blue light. They moved in perfect formation, spreading out until they formed a complete circle around his property. The ground trembled as they landed, one after another, until Danny lost count. Then the doors opened. Figures emerged from each ship. They were like Veth, tall and thin with that same pale blue skin. But these beings were different. They wore armor that seemed to shimmer and shift in the light. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. And they moved with the kind of precision that Danny recognized from his military days. These were soldiers. These were warriors. They took up positions around his house, forming ranks 3 deep. Danny counted quickly in his head. 10 ships, 30 soldiers each. 300 armed aliens, all of them watching his little farmhouse with weapons ready. Veth, Danny called back into the house. I think your people are here. Veth appeared in the doorway, moving slowly but standing on its own feet. The alien looked out at the assembled forces and made a sound that might have been a sigh. I was afraid of this, Veth said. Afraid of what? Who are these people? Before Veth could answer, one of the soldiers stepped forward. This one was taller than the others, with armor that carried symbols Danny did not recognize. It walked straight up to the porch and stopped, looking down at Danny with an expression that held no warmth. I am Commander Tarek of the Imperial Guard, it said. You will explain how you came to possess the Crown Prince of the Volanthi Empire. Danny blinked. He turned to look at Veth. The alien would not meet his eyes. Crown Prince? Danny repeated slowly. You told me you were a scout. I said I was on a survey mission, Veth said quietly. I did not say it was my only role. Commander Tarek stepped closer. Danny could feel the heat coming off the alien's armor, could smell something sharp and metallic in the air around it. The being you call Veth is the heir to the throne of our empire, Tarek said. It rules over 40 star systems and 1 trillion citizens. Its life is the most valuable thing in our civilization. And you, human, you had it in your possession for an entire night. You will explain yourself. Danny looked at the commander. He looked at the 300 soldiers surrounding his home. He looked at Veth, who was watching him with an expression somewhere between guilt and hope. Then he did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He laughed. Explain myself? He said, sure, why not? Here is what happened. Your prince crashed in my desert. I found it dying of thirst. I gave it water. I brought it inside. I let it rest on my couch. That is the whole story. There is nothing else to explain. Commander Tarek stared at him. You expect me to believe that you helped the Crown Prince out of simple kindness? That you wanted nothing in return? I did not know it was your prince. I did not know it was an alien, not at first. I just knew it was someone who needed help. So I helped. That is what people do where I come from. That is not what people do anywhere in the known galaxy. Danny shrugged. Then I guess you have not been looking in the right places. The commander turned to Veth. Your Highness, is this true? Did this human really save your life without demanding payment? Veth stepped forward, standing beside Danny on the porch. It is true, Commander. He gave me water when I was dying. He asked for nothing. He did not even ask my name until after I was safe in his home. I have never experienced anything like it. Tarak was silent for a long moment. Danny could see the soldiers shifting, could feel the tension in the air. Something was happening here that went beyond a simple rescue. Something that these aliens did not know how to process. Finally, Tarak spoke again. We will remain here until we understand what has happened. No one enters or leaves this area. Scholar Pala will conduct an assessment of this human and its culture. Until we have answers, the Crown Prince stays under guard. And me? Danny asked. Am I a prisoner? Tarak looked at him with those cold, reflective eyes. That depends entirely on what we learn. The commander turned and walked away. Soldiers moved to surround the house. A shimmering dome of energy began to form overhead, cutting off the stars. Danny watched it all happen with a strange sense of calm. He had faced danger before. He had been shot at, bombed, nearly killed more times than he could remember. This was different, but the feeling was the same. Stay calm. Stay focused. Deal with what is in front of you. He turned to Veth. So, Crown Prince of a Galactic Empire. That is quite a title. Veth had the decency to look embarrassed. I'm sorry I did not tell you. I was not sure how you would react. I probably would have given you water anyway, Danny said. But a little warning would have been nice. He looked up at the dome of energy, now covering his property, cutting him off from the rest of the world. I have a feeling, he said, that things are about to get very complicated. The dome that covered Danny's property blocked everything. Radio signals, phone calls, even the light from the outside world. Inside, there was only the blue glow from the alien ships and the constant movement of soldiers patrolling the perimeter. They set up equipment around his house. Scanners, monitors, devices that Danny could not identify. They analyzed his water supply. They tested his food. They examined every room, every closet, every drawer. They even scanned the cup he had used to give Veth that first drink of water. The cup was nothing special. His wife Linda had bought it at a yard sale years ago. It had a faded picture of a sunflower on the side and a small chip on the rim. But the aliens studied it like it held the secrets of the universe. Scholar Pala arrived on the second day. She was older than the soldiers, with silver markings on her face that seemed to glow in certain light. Unlike the warriors, she carried no weapons. Instead, she carried a device that projected images and recorded everything Danny said. I study the behavior of primitive species, she explained when she introduced herself. I want to understand why you did what you did. Danny sat across from her at his kitchen table. Veth was in the living room, surrounded by guards who had not let the prince out of their sight since the arrival. Commander Tarak stood in the corner, watching everything with those cold eyes. I already told you why, Danny said. Veth was dying. I helped. There is nothing complicated about it. But there must be something more, Pala insisted. Among the Volanthi, among every species we have encountered in 10,000 years of space travel, resources are never shared freely. Every transaction requires payment. Every gift creates a debt. This is the fundamental law of intelligent life. Maybe that is the law out there, Danny said, pointing upward. But here on Earth, we do things differently. Explain this to me. Help me understand. Danny thought about how to answer. He had never been good with words. He was a simple man who had lived a simple life. But these aliens were asking him to explain something that felt as natural as breathing. "Where do you want me to start?" he asked. "Start with your history. Your wars." Danny nodded slowly. "We have had a lot of wars. Terrible ones. Millions of people killed. Cities destroyed. Whole countries torn apart. I fought in some of those wars myself. I saw things that still give me nightmares." Pela leaned forward. "This is consistent with our observations. Humans are violent, competitive, aggressive." "We can be," Danny agreed. "But that is not the whole story. In every war one fought, I also saw people risk their lives to save strangers. I saw soldiers carry wounded enemies to safety. I saw doctors work for days without sleep to save people who had been trying to kill them hours before. The same species that starts wars is also the species that runs into burning buildings to save children it has never met." Pela's silver markings flickered. Danny was starting to recognize that as a sign of confusion or surprise. "You save your enemies?" she asked. "Sometimes. Not always. But sometimes. Because once the fighting stops, they are not enemies anymore. They are just people. Hurt people who need help. This makes no evolutionary sense." Danny shrugged. "Maybe not. But it is true." Pela was quiet for a moment, processing. Then she asked another question. "Tell me about your medical practices. How do you treat illness and injury?" This was easier ground. Danny told her about hospitals and clinics. He explained how doctors took an oath to help anyone who needed care, regardless of whether they could pay. He described emergency rooms where people were treated first and asked about payment later. Then he told her about organ donation. Pela's reaction was unlike anything Danny had seen before. Her whole body went rigid. Her silver markings blazed bright. She made a sound that might have been a gasp or might have been a scream. "You give parts of your own bodies to strangers," she demanded. "You allow pieces of yourself to be removed so that others might live." "Yes, thousands of people do it every year. Some donate while they are alive, things like kidneys or blood. Others donate after they die, giving their hearts and lungs and eyes to people who need them. But the dead cannot receive payment. What do they gain from this gift? Nothing. They gain nothing. They do it because they know their death can give life to someone else. They do it because it is the right thing to do." Pela stood up so abruptly that her chair fell over. She turned to Commander Tarek, speaking rapidly in the Volanti language. Danny watched them argue, unable to understand the words, but recognizing the tone. Pela was upset. Tarek was skeptical. Something Danny had said had shaken them both. Finally, Pela turned back to him. Her voice was different now, softer, almost uncertain. "In our empire," she said, "we have strict laws about resource distribution. No one gives anything without guarantee of return. The strong take from the weak. This is how it has always been. This is what we believed was natural, inevitable, the only way intelligent life could function. And now? Now I do not know what to believe." She sat back down, her movements slower than before. The silver markings on her face had dimmed to almost nothing. "Tell me more," she said. "Tell me about your families, your communities. How do you care for those who cannot care for themselves?" Danny spent the next several hours talking. He told her about parents who worked multiple jobs to give their children better lives. He told her about neighbors who brought food when someone was sick. He told her about volunteers who spent their free time building houses for people they would never meet. He told her about the firefighters and paramedics who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. He told her about Linda, about how she had spent the last year of her life, when she was too sick to work, volunteering at a local shelter because she wanted to help others even when she could not help herself. about how strangers had shown up at her funeral, people Danny had never met. All of them with stories about how Linda's kindness had changed their lives. By the time he finished, Pela was crying. Danny had not known that Volanti could cry, but they could. Clear tears ran down her blue face, leaving trails that glittered in the artificial light. "We have been watching your world for centuries," she said. "We saw your wars and your crimes and your cruelty. We thought we understood you. We were so wrong." She wiped her face with a gesture that was surprisingly human. "You are not primitive," she said. "You are something we have never encountered before. Something we did not believe was possible." "What is that?" Danny asked. Pela looked at him with an expression that mixed wonder and fear in equal measure. "You are a species that has learned to survive through kindness. A civilization built on the impossible foundation of giving without expectation. And that changes everything." She turned to Tarek. "Commander, we need to speak with the prince. And we need to contact the emperor. What happens next will affect the entire empire." Danny watched them go, leaving him alone in his kitchen with more questions than answers. Through the window, he could see the glow of the alien ships, the movement of soldiers, the shimmering dome that separated him from the rest of the world. He had no idea what was coming. But for the first time since this whole thing started, he felt something that might have been hope. The next 3 days were chaos. Word of what had happened spread through the Volanti fleet faster than Danny could have imagined. Shuttles arrived from orbit, carrying officials and scholars and military officers who wanted to see the human for themselves. Danny's small farmhouse became the center of something much larger than one man's act of kindness. They asked him the same questions over and over. "Why did you help? What did you want? What do you expect now?" And over, Danny gave them the same answer. He helped because someone needed help. He wanted nothing. He expected nothing. Some of them believed him. Others clearly did not. But all of them seemed shaken by what they had heard. On the 4th day, they gathered in his living room for what Commander Tarek called Council of Decision. 15 Volanti leaders sat in a circle, with Danny and Veth on opposite sides of the room. Scholar Pala stood in the center, presenting her findings. "I have conducted extensive interviews with the human," she said. "I have reviewed records of human history, human culture, human society, and I have reached a conclusion that I know many of you will find difficult to accept." She paused, looking around the circle. "This species is not like us. They are not like any species we have ever encountered. They have developed a social structure based on something we considered impossible. They give without expectation of return. They sacrifice for strangers. They build communities on trust and cooperation rather than competition and individual gain." An older Volanti with gold markings on his armor spoke up. "Scholar Pala, what you describe goes against everything we know about intelligent life. Evolution favors the selfish. Resources are limited. Those who share freely are eliminated by those who take." "That is what we believed," Pela agreed. "But this species has found another way. They have discovered that cooperation can be more powerful than competition. That communities built on mutual support are stronger than collections of selfish individuals. They have turned kindness into a survival strategy." The gold-marked Volanti shook his head. "Even if this is true, what does it matter? These humans are primitive. They have barely left their own planet. Their technology is generations behind ours. What threat could they possibly pose?" Another voice spoke up. This one came from a female with deep blue markings, an admiral by her uniform. "That is exactly what concerns me. If Scholar Pela is correct, then this species represents an existential challenge to our way of life." Danny looked up sharply. He did not like the sound of that. "The foundation of our empire is built on the principle of individual achievement," the admiral continued. Every citizen knows that what they have earned. Every resource is properly distributed through fair transaction. This system has kept us stable for 10,000 years. She pointed at Danny. But if beings can thrive through giving things away for free, if communities can grow strong through sacrifice and sharing, then our entire social order becomes questionable. Our citizens might start to wonder if there is a better way. The stability of our empire could crumble. So, what are you suggesting? Veth demanded. The prince had been quiet throughout the meeting, but now there was anger in his voice. That we destroy them? Kill an entire species because their existence makes us uncomfortable? I am suggesting we consider all options, including containment. Danny stood up. Every Volanthi in the room turned to look at him. Several guards moved their hands toward their weapons. Can I say something? He asked. Commander Turek nodded slowly. You may speak, human. Danny took a deep breath. He was not a politician or a philosopher. He was just a tired old farmer who had stumbled into something way bigger than himself. But he had something to say, and he was going to say it. I have been listening to you talk for the past hour, he said, and I think I understand the problem. You have built your whole society on the idea that everyone is out for themselves, that the only way to survive is to take before you are taken from. And that idea has worked for you. It has kept your empire running for thousands of years. He paused, looking around the circle. But it has also made you afraid. Afraid of each other. Afraid of strangers. Afraid of anything that challenges what you believe. You look at my species and you see a threat, not because we have powerful weapons or advanced technology, but because we have a different idea. The idea that sometimes the best way to help yourself is to help others. The Admiral started to object, but Danny kept talking. You want to know the truth about humans? We are not special. We are not perfect. We fight and steal and hurt each other just like any other species. But we also learned something a long time ago. We learned that the universe is cold and dark and dangerous, and the only way to survive it is together. We learned that when you help someone today, they might help you tomorrow. We learned that kindness creates more kindness, and cruelty creates more cruelty. And you get to choose which world you want to live in. He looked directly at the Admiral. You say our existence threatens your empire. I say your empire threatens itself. A society that cannot allow for generosity, that sees kindness as weakness, that treats every gift as a transaction. That society is not strong. It is brittle. It is one crisis away from falling apart, because when things get hard, your people will not help each other. They will fight over what is left. The room was silent. Danny could feel his heart pounding, but he kept his voice steady. You can destroy us if you want. You have the power. But that will not change the truth. Kindness works. Cooperation works. Sharing works. And somewhere in your empire, maybe already, there are people who know this. People who wish they could give without counting the cost. People who are tired of living in fear of each other. You can kill humans, but you cannot kill that idea. It will keep coming back until you learn to accept it. He sat down. His hands were shaking. He had never given a speech like that in his life. The silence stretched. The Volanthi exchanged glances, their facial markings flickering with colors Danny could not interpret. Finally, Veth stood. I owe this human my life, the prince said. Under our law, that creates a life debt. A debt that cannot be paid with resources or favors. A debt that can only be honored by showing the same kindness that was shown to me. Veth walked to the center of the circle and stood beside Danny. I propose that we honor this debt in a way that matters. We leave Earth alone. We do not interfere with their development. We watch from a distance and learn from them. And in 100 years, we return to see what they have become. The Admiral shook her head. Your Highness, this is not wise. The risk is too great. The risk of what? Veth demanded. The risk that our people might learn a better way to live? The risk that our empire might become stronger through cooperation instead of competition. I am willing to take that risk. I think our people deserve that chance. Another long silence. Then Scholar Pala spoke. I support the prince's proposal. What we have learned here is too important to destroy. These humans may hold the key to questions we have been asking for 10,000 years. How can intelligent life overcome its selfish nature? How can civilizations survive their own competitive instincts? The answers might be right here on this small blue planet. One by one, the other council members began to speak. Some agreed with Veth. Some sided with the Admiral. The debate went back and forth for hours. Danny sat quietly through all of it, watching beings from another world argue about the fate of his species. He thought about Linda, about what she would say if she could see this. She would probably laugh at how ridiculous it all was. And then she would remind him that all he could do was tell the truth and hope for the best. That was exactly what he had done. Now all he could do was wait. The vote came at midnight. Danny had lost track of how long the debate had lasted. Hours stretched into more hours as Volanti. Officials argued about politics and precedent and the proper interpretation of ancient laws. His eyes were heavy and his back ached from sitting in the same position for so long. But he forced himself to stay awake, to pay attention to every word, because his whole world depended on what these aliens decided. Commander Tarak called the council to order. The room fell silent. We have heard all arguments, Tarak said. We have considered the implications for our empire and our people. Now we must decide. Those in favor of the prince's proposal, indicate your support. One by one, hands were raised. Danny counted them silently. 8, 9, 10. The Admiral and 4 others kept their hands down. But it did not matter. The vote was clear. The proposal passes, Tarak announced. Earth will be designated a protected observation zone. No Volanti vessel may land on this planet or make contact with its inhabitants for a period of 100 standard years. At that time, a delegation will return to assess the development of human civilization. Danny let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. The council broke up quickly after that. Officials returned to their shuttles. Soldiers began taking down equipment. Within hours, the dome of energy that had covered Danny's property flickered and disappeared, revealing the stars for the first time in days. Veth found him on the porch, sitting in his old chair, staring up at the sky. It is over, the prince said. My people will honor the agreement. You and your species are safe. Danny nodded slowly. Thank you for supporting us, for convincing them. I did not convince them. You did. Your words, your story, your actions. I simply told the truth about what happened. They sat together in silence for a while, watching the Volanti ships begin to lift off one by one. Each departure was marked by a flash of blue light and a gentle rumble that shook the ground. What happens now? Danny asked. For you, I mean, you go back to being a prince? Veth made a sound that Danny had learned to recognize as laughter. I go back to preparing to be emperor, yes. But I do not think I will ever be the same. You have given me something I did not know I was missing. What is that? Hope. The belief that things can be different. That my people do not have to live in fear and competition forever. Veth turned to look at him. I am going to change the empire, Danny Cole. It will take time. It will be difficult. There will be resistance. But I'm going to try to build something better. Something based on what I learned here. Danny smiled. That is a big goal for one person. You saved my life with 1 cup of water. Big changes start small. The last of the transport ships lifted off. Only Veth's personal vessel remained, glowing softly on the scorched earth where Danny's vegetable garden used to be. Guards stood nearby, waiting for their prince. Veth stood up and reached into a pocket of his robes. He pulled out a small disc, about the size of a coin, made of some material that seemed to shift colors as it moved. "Take this," he said, pressing it into Danny's hand. "If you ever need help, if your people ever need help, hold this and speak. The message will reach me, wherever I am. And I will come. I owe you that much." Danny looked at the disc. It was cool against his palm, smooth and light. He had no idea how it worked or what kind of technology could send the message across the galaxy. But he believed Veth. He believed the promise. "I hope I never have to use it," he said. "So do I, but it is good to have. Just in case." Veth walked down the porch steps, then stopped and turned back. 100 years, the prince said. "When we return, I will ask about you. I will want to know how you spent your life. I will want to know if you kept helping people, kept giving without expecting return. I will want to hear your story." Danny smiled sadly. "I will probably be dead by then. Then I will speak to your descendants, your children, your grandchildren. I will tell them about the man who gave water to a dying stranger and changed the course of history. I will make sure your story is remembered. It was just water." Veth smiled that awkward smile again, the one copied from human expressions. That is what makes it so remarkable. It was just water. It was just kindness. It was just doing the right thing. And it was enough to shake an empire. The prince turned and walked toward the waiting ship. Danny watched as Veth climbed the ramp and disappeared inside. Moments later, the vessel lifted off, rising slowly at first and then accelerating until it was just another point of light among the stars. Danny sat alone on his porch for a long time after that. The desert was quiet again. The scorch marks on his property were already fading in the wind. By tomorrow, there would be almost no evidence that anything had happened here. Almost. He looked at the disc in his hand. A promise from another world. A connection to something vast and strange and full of possibility. He put it in his pocket, right next to his wallet and his keys. Like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. Then he went inside and made himself a cup of coffee. The sun was starting to rise, painting the eastern sky in shades of orange and pink. Danny stood at his kitchen window and watched the light spread across the desert. It was beautiful, the way mornings always were out here. Simple and quiet and full of promise. He thought about everything that had happened. The alien in the dust. The cup of water. The ships descending from the sky. The debate about the fate of his species. It all seemed like a dream now, something too strange to be real. But it had been real. And somewhere out there, among the stars he could no longer see, an empire was beginning to change. Beings who had never known kindness were learning that another way was possible. A prince was planning a revolution built on compassion instead of competition. All because Danny Cole had done what seemed obvious to him. What his parents had taught him, what Linda had shown him, what he had seen in the best moments of his life. When someone needs help, you help them. It did not matter who they were or where they came from or what they could give you in return. You helped because helping was right. He finished his coffee and washed the cup. The same cup with the faded sunflower that he had used to give Veth that first drink of water. He set it carefully in the dish rack to dry. Outside, the sun climbed higher. The desert stretched in every direction, empty and vast and full of secrets. Somewhere beyond it, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the solar system, Valenti scholars were writing reports about human kindness. Diplomats were debating the implications of a species built on cooperation. And the prince was dreaming of a better future. Danny did not know what the next 100 years would bring. He did not know if humanity would meet the test that awaited them. He did not know if the Volanti would really change, or if their fear of difference would eventually win out. But he knew one thing. He had been given a chance to show an alien what humans could be. And he had shown them the best of his species. Not the wars or the cruelty or the endless competition. Just a tired old farmer in the desert. Giving water to someone who was thirsty. It was not much. But it was enough. Danny Cole stepped out onto his porch, sat down in his old chair, and began another day. The universe had changed around him. Everything was different now, but the sun still rose. The coffee still tasted good. And somewhere out there, kindness was spreading. That was enough for him.